The chances of seeing the former UFC heavyweight champion Francis Ngannou in a bout with the new UFC heavyweight champion and MMA icon Jon Jones are almost non-existent, but it's not impossible. After defeating Cyril Gane in a hard-fought, 5-round unanimous decision, the UFC failed to re-sign Ngannou following a lengthy and tumultuous negotiation process.
It's not simply money. I mean, obviously, money is a part of it, but it's also the term of the contract that I don't agree with it. You know, I don't feel like it's fair. I don't feel like I'm fair. I'm a free man. I don't feel like, I don't feel like I've been treated good, and it's unfortunate that I have to be in this position to be able to do that, to say that.
The heavy-hitting champ chose to vacate the title in search of bigger paydays with other promotions, either in a cage or in the boxing ring against mega money makers like Tyson Fury, who Ngannou faced off with following Fury's win over Dillian Whyte. After a lengthy search, Ngannou signed on with the surging Professional Fighters League. His new contract includes the right to box outside of the PFL in the role of chairman of PFL Africa, the latest branch of the increasingly global promotion. During that time, the former two-time light heavyweight champion and possible MMA GOAT Jon Jones made his long-awaited return to the cage after 3 years on the sidelines.
What do you guys think? You guys think I'm the greatest of all time or what? Yeah. I appreciate it. I appreciate the love. You know? Yo, you guys are rowdy. I love it. I love the energy. Keep it coming. I love the energy.
In his heavyweight debut, he faced Cyril Gane for the vacated title, and he steamrolled Gane with a first-round submission. He made it look easy. If people didn't want to see if Jones could handle Ngannou before, they certainly did then. And that's an extremely important fight for MMA. In boxing, there are 4 major world titles. With so many belts, the only way to determine who the actual champion is by having one champion win all 4. That's your lineal champion, the actual world champion. But in boxing, that doesn't happen very often. In MMA, the UFC wisely recruited every lineal champion in the game as early as they could. That meant the UFC champion was the world champion. It's part of why they were so successful, but they've lost that. In 2018, the UFC released the former pound-for-pound champion and longtime flyweight champion Demetrius Johnson after he lost the title via a contentious split decision. The man who beat DJ, Henry Cejudo, vacated the title to move up in weight. That meant Johnson, who now holds the ONE championship, should have fought for the vacant lineal title, but he didn't. Brandon Moreno is now the UFC champion, and a bout between Moreno and Johnson is the fight the world needs to determine who the true lineal flyweight champion really is. But they've never fought, and likely never will. So right now, there is no real flyweight world champion. In a slightly different situation, Francis Ngannou was the undisputed heavyweight champion. But after he vacated the title, he didn't move up a division. Crucially, that means there is no lineal title to be fought for in the UFC, because Ngannou is still fighting. Yes, Jon Jones won the UFC heavyweight title, and yes, he beat Cyril Gane easily. But Jones didn't beat the lineal champ. That means, for the first time in a long time, the UFC heavyweight champion isn't the real world champion. Now, the PFL has the lineal, true heavyweight champion, and the UFC will have to have Jones beat him if they want to get that back. UFC President Dana White could make this happen, but he won't, because Uncle Dana is famously opposed to co-promotions. Just ask UFC Hall of Famer Randy Couture, who's had some experience with this exact sort of thing. When Couture was the UFC champ, he wanted to fight the lineal heavyweight champion, M1 Global's Fedor Emelianenko, and they were ready to go. But the Fedor fight would have happened if the UFC would have agreed to a co-promotion with M1 Global, Couture said. They had agreed on money. What they hadn't agreed on was doing any co-promotion, and the UFC told them to take a hike. With Jones holding the UFC heavyweight title and White being anti-co-promotion, a bout against Ngannou is extremely unlikely. But there are two glimmers of hope in the darkness. First was spotted by the PFL commentator Couture. In boxing, championship bouts are often derailed by TV broadcast rights. If two fighters are contractually signed to different networks and pay-per-view providers, they often don't get to fight. Couture points out that this wouldn't be a problem. The TV part of that, the network and exposure part of that, is solved because both the UFC and PFL are on ESPN, he explained. So that's the first hurdle crossed. The second hurdle is White's no co-pro stance, but he's broken that before to help stage the highly lucrative Floyd Mayweather versus Conor McGregor money-making extravaganza. And why?
It's a historic fight. You know, what I love about this fight, this isn't a fight that I went out and tried to promote. This isn't a fight that I tried to make. This is a fight that I actually resisted in the beginning.
He resisted until he saw how much money they'd all make. The difference is, Mayweather and McGregor are two of the biggest financial draw cards that combat sports have ever known. They're media personality juggernauts, and that's why it worked.
Between the media and the fans, that's how this fight was built. And you know how I am. I love giving people the fights they want to see. This is one of them, so let's do it.
Publicity-wise, Ngannou and Jones have a lot of work to do before White would even consider a co-promotion. They're just not worth the money, at least not yet, and they likely won't be anytime soon. And that's largely on Ngannou. If the former UFC champ steps away from the cage to box, then it's very possible that he won't defend his lineal title for upwards of 3 years. That's 3 years without a true lineal heavyweight world title fight. And if that's what happens, we may as well be watching boxing.
Thanks for watching. And remember, if you want more fight sports in your life, just hit the subscribe button.